Hey beautiful people, what is up? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. Today's a really exciting video because I'm going to be doing 3 looks for you guys with 3 different palettes because Nomad Cosmetics has reached into their vaults, reformulated and re-released 3 of their old palettes. And they're good. They're so good, you guys. So what I'm going to do in today's video is I'm going to give you guys product details. I'm going to do swatches for all of the palettes, and then I'm going to do 1 look with each palette, then come back at the end and give you guys my final thoughts. And really that's going to kind of center around like, how do these compare to the original formula? How do I feel about these now? Is it worth you picking up? So go ahead, get you a little snacky snack, a little drinky drink, and let's go ahead and dive in. So like I said, Nomad Cosmetics has re-released 3 of their old palettes and reformulated them to have them in their upgraded formula. Now, when it comes to indie brands, a lot of times, and a couple of you guys have mentioned this to me, like what happens oftentimes with the palettes or the products in their line is that they tend to be discontinued when the purchases go down. So if you are discovering a brand for the first time, there is a chance that there are old palettes that you just can't get anymore. So I really appreciate when brands are like, let's go into the vault and for a limited time, bring back an old palette so the people that have recently discovered us can find it. So Nomad Cosmetics reached into their vault and they have reformulated 3 of their old palettes. Now, I have 2 out of the 3 in my collection because I did declutter one of them. And I will give you guys like all the thoughts and all the reasons onto why. But which 3 palettes did they bring back? First and foremost, we have the America's Parks palette. Now, the packaging is the exact same from the original, so there's nothing that really changed with it, but there is a special limited edition or like 10-year anniversary sticker that comes with it. I don't know if I said this, but the re-release is for their 10th anniversary. So this is like a celebration of the brand. So again, first up we have the America's Parks palette. Now all of these palettes are in the 15 pan format. As you know, Nomad does this 15 pan, but then they also have a larger, I believe it's like an 18 pan palette. They're all the 15 pan. This was a huge release for the brand, and I think this was actually the first Nomad Cosmetics palette that I purchased. So I was really excited to see this one come back in the updated formula. Now, here's the new palette. Here is my old version. So you can see color story is still the exact same, but there is like some slight differences because of the formulation change. Now, granted, these palettes are really old, so I can't compare these apples to apples because this is technically expired considering how long I've had it. But I do want you guys to take a look at the shimmer formulation just so that you can see how the textures really differ. And I'm looking at this now and I'm also seeing that there is a little bit of variation in the brightness of the mattes as well. Huh, interesting. So America's Parks, this is the first palette in this trio. Next, we have the Berlin Underground palette. Now, this is one of my absolute favorite palettes from the brand. This is what I would consider a very beautiful, stunning, spicy neutral palette. And honestly, it leans more neutral than anything else. If you take out this like green, bright green shade here, the rest of this palette is pretty neutral, leaning warm. This is a palette that I did not get in the original release, but I stumbled upon it at a TJ Maxx, and it was one of the palettes that was released in an Ipsy collection, and somehow it ended up at TJ Maxx. I don't even know, right, y'all? But I picked it up because I was like, this is a beautiful color story. So this is the one that I picked up at TJ Maxx. This is the one that they just sent me. This is the one that just got released. Again, exact same color story. Wait, hold up. No, it is the exact same color story. Now, the reason I'm surprised by this is because when it comes to this Berlin palette, which I absolutely love, the shimmers in here are so fine, you guys. Like, so fine to the point where some of these are borderline satins and not shimmers. When you look at the reformulation in this packaging, you'll see the shimmers are so much more punchier. You can really see the texture of the shimmer shades in here, which is very different from the shades in the original palette, where you can really see that the shimmers are so finely milled that they're borderline satins. So this, I think, is a huge difference in formulation from the new palette to the original palette. And again, same packaging on the front. The only difference is the 10-year anniversary sticker on the back. And lastly, we have the Fetes De Provence palette. This is the only one that I do not still have in my collection, and that is because I really did not like this palette. Now, I'm a huge fan of Nomad Cosmetics, but the reason why I didn't like this palette is when it originally came out, and you can probably kind of tell just by looking at this, this is a pretty pastel palette. But the original formulation was so pastel that it was dust on me. And I mean like straight dust, like poof. So I decluttered it. Like, as much as I create content, I don't necessarily love just keeping and holding on to palettes simply for the sake of holding on to palettes. So it was one that I just gifted. Like, I didn't sell it. If I get something in PR, which I did get all of these in PR, I do not sell them. But I didn't want to just have it sit in my collection, taking up space when it could be used and loved on by somebody else. So I did end up gifting it. But we have this new release, again, in the updated formula. Still a top row of pastels with then a deeper row. And then the middle row of shimmers. And definitely is punchier and has more pigment than that original Dusty palette. Okay, and this is the only one that has sort of 5 shimmers and more mattes. So it's like 10 mattes, 5 shimmers. The other 2 palettes are very, very shimmer heavy. So something you might want to keep in mind if you're deciding which of these palettes you want to pick up. So let's get into a little bit of the pricing details. Now, these palettes, when they originally were released, they were $39. Inflation has been inflationing. So currently, all of Nomad's palettes in the $15 pan palette tend to be in the $44 range. But what they're doing for a limited time is for the 3 initial weeks of this re-release, they're keeping the palettes at that original price. So what they were selling for 10 years ago. So they are going to be available for $39 currently. And you can use affiliate codes on top of that to save some additional money. I do have a code with the brand. It's just Jamila. So you already get that little discount, the $5 off, so $39. And then you can use my code Jamila to save an additional 10%, which is going to give you another $3.90, close to $4 off. So if you are interested in picking it up, definitely check it out. There are also going to be bundles available. So if you want all, or if you just want, 1 or 2, like, there are going to be bundles available on the site. So you can check that out as well to save some additional coinage. Okay, now this intro has been much longer than I thought it would be. Let's go ahead and dive into the demos, and then I'll come back at the end and give you guys my final thoughts, palette by palette. Okay, so let's start with the palette that I'm most excited about. This is the Berlin palette. Now, as you can see, there's not a ton of mattes. Like, the matte to shimmer ratio in this is very, very low. So I'm going to actually start by going in with this almost cool toned brown, almost grayish looking shade. That is... no, I'm not going to even try to pronounce it because... oh, Lord D. And I'm going to put that into the crease, start things off with my transition shade. Then taking that same brush, I'm going to go into that brown shade that's right next door. Now this is definitely a much warmer shade. So I'm interested to see how that one's mixing. And that first one is kind of light, and not light as in like too light for me, but light as in it's pretty much my skin tone, so it doesn't really add much to my complexion. And I would love to do multiple looks with this palette for you guys. There's just so much nice shimmers to work with. But considering that we have the 3 new palettes from Nomad, or 3 re-released palettes from Nomad, I'm just gonna give you guys 1 each. This doesn't look bad, even though it's like a warm and a cool tone blending. I'm not mad at this at all. And I'm taking that brown and I'm like, not only just mixing that into the crease, but bringing it out into the outer V parts of the eye, because in the only other shade that I have is the black to help deepen things up, and I don't want this to be an overly smoky look. And I also don't want the outer parts to just be straight up black. So by starting with the brown and then adding the black to it, I can deepen it up and then get the shade that I need. So gently, and I mean gently, the tiniest amount of black on either side, just to deepen up that brown tad bit. You're like sugar in my tea, but it's bittersweet, 'cause I know it's now, so much to choose from, and I think I'm gonna try to stick with something that's a little bit more green, because I have been doing a lot of like just sort of neutral orangey brown warm tone shades. So I want to stick neutral, but I want to do neutral with a twist. So I'm going in with this deep green shade. Oh, that's so pretty. Like, it looks like a antique gold almost. can already tell you this is definitely that new and improved Nomad formula. When I use the Berlin palette, the old one that I got at TJ Maxx on a like random find, the shimmers are so finely milled. It was almost like a satin. This is definitely a true shimmer. And I love this kind of antique gold. So pretty. And I was going to go in with this shade, but let's spice things up a little bit. I'm actually going to take the Iridescent Dual Chrome. It looks white, but this is one of those green iridescent shades. And this is not too stark on my complexion. It just adds a really nice brightness to the inner part of the eye here. See myself wanting more. Oh, you got me sweating in this summer heat, even in this weather. Okay, so this is the blueprint. Let me go ahead, clean this up, and I'll come back and show you guys the final look. I just love to love you, only for the summer. Okay, so we are on to palette number 2, the America's Parks palette. Oh my god, she's absolutely stunning. So much better than I remember the first time. Anyways, we're gonna start by going into Giant Redwoods. And I'm plopping that right into the crease. And today I am looking to do something that's a little bit more neutral. Warm neutral, but definitely neutral. The first look was a little bit more green. And I'm using a different primer because what I'm realizing is that when I use concealer on my lids and I set it, there's nothing for these shimmers to really stick to, and that's causing a lot of fallout for me. So to avoid that, I'm just going in with a more tacky primer. This is the Milk Hydro Grip eyeshadow primer, and many things about a more tacky primer is that it's great for shimmers to help them stick, but it does mean that you need to blend a little bit more when it comes to the mattes. But these are blending fine though, surprisingly. Not surprisingly, as in like, oh, I've had issues with the Nomad mattes. Just that with such a tacky base, I feel like sometimes it can be difficult, but this is beautiful in terms of the blend. Like, that was so quick and easy. Next up, I'm going to go into Half Dome. That is that deep chocolate brown. And I'm also realizing that similar to the other palette, this is a very, very shimmer heavy palette. So not a ton of mattes compared to the amount of shimmers. Only for the summer. And I'm just plopping that into the outer corner and blending it into the crease. Yeah, using this eyeshadow primer is definitely making this a lot easier to work with. Okay, shimmer time. So I immediately fell in love with, is it this one? Yes, this shimmer here. It's called the Narrows. And this kind of swirly shade, Felton range, is kind of like a green gold shimmer. So what I think I'm gonna do is start with the Narrows and then end with Felton range. That's pretty. So taking the Narrows, oh, that is so pretty, and already applying so much better. There's no fallout. It's just sticking to the lids like I had hoped. And then Felton range, which you don't really see the green in there. This just looks like a beautiful neutral shade. And I will say, I feel like Felton has a thinner consistency. So the Narrows has a little bit more chunk to it, but it's still pretty smooth. Okay, Okay, so this is the framework. I'm gonna go ahead, clean things up, and come back and show you guys the final look.
Is it miscommunication? Silence in between. One more awkward.
Okay, so we're gonna go in with the final palette. As much as I want to like play in these two rows, I'm actually gonna focus on these two rows, because when I originally tried this palette when it first came out, I had an issue with the pastel shades being so pastel that they were just dusty on me. I actually decluttered this palette. This is the only palette in my collection out of these three that I did not keep. So let's go ahead and you know what, let's start by going into this shade. Let's see if this actually shows up is not pastel on me. So we're taking the pink shade Rosé, popping that into the crease. Okay, she is dusty, I could already tell, but not as bad as it was the last time. Yeah, I mean, it's dusty, but the last time it was like white.
Can't call you up when it's late at night. Can't call it love, but at least.
Next, I'm gonna go one over into the peachy shade with that same brush, and that's just because I want to start to deepen this up, get a little bit more pigment in there. Oh, that's punchy.
Still can't call it a waste of time. I don't know what to call you if I can't call you mine.
Okay, now I thought about playing in these shades, but let's just mix things up a little bit. I'm feeling a little colorful. I'm gonna go into the deep purple shade. I'm gonna use that into the outer corner for today's look. And I'm again using the Milk Hydro Grip Primer, just because I want the shimmers to stick. And for shimmers, I'm gonna go in with these two shades. This one is more of a duochrome, a purple to pink shade, and this is like a really beautiful peachy orange shade. So I actually want to start with this and end with this. Yeah, actually, yeah, let's take the pinky purple shade first. Put that, yeah, in the center of the eye. It's pretty. We're gonna take the gold peachy orange shade. Ooh, and put that in the front half.
Distant, waiting on the ice to break. Can we fix this if we get out of our...
And you can see how well the primer is helping this stick and not have a ton of fallout. This is probably the most colorful look I've done in such a long time. And that's just because it's like Saturday morning. I'm not going anywhere until later tonight. So I'm just playing. This is just play. Okay, this is what the eyes are looking like. This is literally the framework. Let me go ahead and clean this up and I'll come back and show you guys the final look. Okay, so now that we're back and you guys have seen all of the looks, all of the sort of final products for the palettes, let's talk about this re-release and my thoughts on it. Now, first and foremost, I want to start by saying this. If you already have these palettes in your collection, you do not need to go out and buy a new one. And yes, I know that if you have them, they are technically expired, but as we all know, and if you're comfortable with it, eyeshadow doesn't exactly expire the same way that other makeup products do. So if your palette is working fine for you, don't go out and spend money on it. That being said, if you've never picked up these palettes, you might want to consider looking into this. I do think that when it comes to color stories, these were some of the most interesting color stories that the brand had. And they also offered something that people that are neutral, like myself, like would enjoy. But also if you wanted a little pop of color, if you wanted something that was a little bit neutral plus, you could enjoy it as well. So let me go through each kind of one by one and talk about how I feel about all of the palettes. So kind of working backwards. Let's start with the Fetes De Provence palette. Now, like I said in the intro, this was one of the palettes that I struggled with the most, and this is actually probably the only Nomad palette that I've ever decluttered in my life. And that was because the original release of this, these pastels were pasteling, and I mean pasteling to the point where they were just dust, like poof, dust. I appreciate that in this reformulation, the pastel shades have a little bit more punch to them, so that they do show up on darker complexions in a much more flattering way. So very grateful that this is actually a palette that I can use. I think even the shimmer formulation in this seems to be a better quality than the ones that were in the Fetes De Provence palette. Like, I really didn't enjoy that one. I'm not even gonna hold y'all. So I'm very excited about this and happy with how this looks turned out, and really excited that this is one that I could keep in my collection because I can use all of these shades. Now, this yellow one I haven't put on my eyes, probably won't work for me, but the rest of the shades are going to be good for my complexion. If you are darker than me, they are still pastels, so you might have to finagle it a little bit, but I do appreciate that they have the darker shades on the bottom. So you can mix and match and deepen it up a little bit, but I totally understand. I'm not one to have to work too hard for things. Next, we have the Berlin Underground palette. Now, once I got to this palette, I realized that in using this new formula, I can't use it the same way I've used previous Nomad formulas. So what I typically do when it comes to eyeshadows and priming my lids is sometimes I like to go in with a concealer, set the concealer, and then go in with the shadow on top of it. Now, that is great and perfect for when I'm doing, like, blending out mattes. It looks amazing. But what I'm realizing is that these shimmers are shimmers that need something to stick to, and because I set my concealer, there's not enough tackiness there, so I do end up with a lot of fallout. So by the time I got to the Berlin Underground, I had switched from my concealer to the Milk Hydro Grip Primer, which has a much more tackiness to it, which I think helps. Anyways, let's talk about the Berlin Underground palette. This was the one that I was most excited for, because when I found this one at Ipsy and I tried it out, y'all, I was like so happy. Now, I will say, I think I prefer the old one better. And that is because this is such a neutral palette and a good everyday wearable palette that I appreciate that the shimmers in here are satin. So I remember when I had first tried this, I was basically like blending out the shimmer shades because they were so satin-like, and having these beautiful, gorgeous looks that had a little bit of a gleam or a sheen to them. And they weren't like packing too much of a punch, but that's the look that I was going for. Now, I understand for some people when they see shimmers, they want it to be a shimmer, not something that's super satin. But I enjoyed this. I had so much fun with this. This is one of my absolute favorite palettes. Now, I'm grateful that I have it in the both formulations because the new formulation actually does pack a punch. Like, there is no question that these shimmers are shimmering. There is no question that these shimmers are shimmers because the particles are much larger. They're much more impactful. So you are going to get a pretty bold, vibrant look. And I also realized, in now finally looking at the two of these, that the mattes in here like straight hardcore mattes, but the mattes in the old formulation have a little bit of a sheen to them. So the mattes in the old formula are not just plain old mattes. Like, they're like, if you look closely, you'll see like the little glimmery shimmery particles in there, and I like it. I don't know, I like it. I like the sheeniness of this. I think I like this one. I think I like the original more than the new, but I'm not mad that I have both because I think I can go really calm or really bold, and yeah, I really enjoy this. And lastly, America's Parks. And this is where it gets kind of reversed for me, because while I like the satinness of the Berlin Underground, I don't love the satinness of the America's Parks. So I'm glad that in this reformulated version, these do pack a punch. Now, the America's Parks palette is such a beautiful color story. I think it's so unique. It's so different. I think it's also one of those that like seems colorful at first glance, but is extremely wearable when you get down to the nitty-gritty. And I really appreciated that these shimmers are going to show up and have a pretty decent punch to it. And there is this like sort of earthiness to all of the shades. So even these sort of neutral orangey shades have a little bit of green in them that it's just gorgeous. I love this, and I really love the reformulation of this so that it packs a little bit more of a punch because these are a little bit softer, more satin, more thin-like. So again, I like the satinness in the Berlin Underground, but I love the punchiness of the America's Parks. You see where it doesn't make sense? So that being said, I am really grateful that I have the new reformulated palettes. I think that they are different enough that if you were on the fence and you could afford it and you know, was like, this would bring me joy, if you were to buy both, you wouldn't feel like it's overly duplicative because of how different the formula is. I can't stress that enough. Like, you're gonna get very different sort of outcomes because of how different the formula is. So will I keep both of them? Honestly, I'm trying not to have too much with me, so maybe I will gift the older formulas to my siblings. Maybe. Because not my Berlin's Underground, though, because y'all, I love that. I'm not even playing. But I will have to think on it. I'll have to sit on it. But I am really grateful that I have both of them. I am so thankful that Nomad Cosmetics sent these my way. And I hope that this video was helpful for you guys if you're thinking about repurchasing these 3 palettes, one or all of them. And I just want to thank you guys for watching today's video. As always, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment down below letting me know if you have this from the old release, if you're planning to buy it in a new release, if you have any questions. If you just want to support and you don't know what to comment, leave a nice orange heart. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Oh, and if you do buy it, use my code Jamila. It'll save you 10%. It is affiliated, so I will get a kickback. But, you know, save your coinage, people. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in my next one. Bye!